Welcome to today's Table Talks. My name is Scott Kappelman, and as always, I've got these two guys sitting beside me, Tyce Lawbinger and Clark McGehee. We are back for our second recording in the same day. You can obviously see we're wearing the same clothes. We are now into the mid-afternoon, which means this video may be worth your time because it's going to be filled with all kind of silliness and craziness.
That is true.
Yeah.
Any updates over the last 45 minutes to your lives that you'd like to share?
I will say, I think we always say something like we need to get Sarav on one of these table talks, and then we never do it. So we should really look, and we should do like a change your job day or something, and one of us get behind the...
I would be happy to push the buttons and record and let Sarav be on one of these because I think he'd do a really good job.
And I think he could take your position well, too,
Absolutely.
as a leader of the table talk.
Yes, he could. I think he could.
Yeah.
He's got that ability.
Yeah, and he's nodding his head fervently behind it. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Maybe when we
he's being very humble.
Maybe when we get in our new studio, he can have it set up where we can have a 4-person panel instead of a 3-person panel.
Maybe so.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We'll see. Hopefully, we're going to get some softer chairs on
Yeah,
our side,
true.
regardless how many mics we
true.
have. So.
That's true.
All right.
Well, I do have a question. So, because it's going to be a few weeks, how are you feeling about your sermon series right now? So you'll be almost finished by the time this podcast
yes,
airs.
we're doing a series called A Theology of Suffering, and strange enough, I have gotten more feedback from this series than I got from the Sermon on the Mount.
Well, we're only 2 weeks in.
And we're 2 weeks in. And it's been positive. People have come up to me and said, I really am looking forward to walking through this. I know people who are suffering right now, and I do not know how to respond. And this has been helpful to give me some food for thought.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do you think? You're in the series, so...
Yeah, I mean, I missed week 2.
You had to be in the nursery.
Yeah, but...
It's not that he just skips.
No.
Yeah.
I try and be at everything I can. I'm always present at church.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. Yeah, I think it'll be good. I do think this is one of those ways, because me and you have talked, we're big Sunday night, Wednesday night people.
Oh, I wish we had Sunday night.
You can get some more interesting topics. And I think everyone should have just a basic overview of Christian counseling. And while you can't do that Sunday morning, this is probably a way that you could.
It's
this is
about as
some
close.
Basic biblical counseling for everyone. That's how you go through it.
That's a good point. I like that. I do wish we had a Sunday night or a Wednesday night in this series in particular to talk more about it. Maybe even take questions from the audience.
Oh,
I think
yeah, that'd be huge.
helpful as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Not on Sunday morning, it's just not possible, but a Sunday night or Wednesday night would be ideal for that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we had a college student come in and we just had people raising their hands and you just base their sermon off of whatever
they said.
coming up on the fly.
It might create some interest, but
I mean,
maybe
I'm
some
sure it
interest.
would.
also create some controversy. But
Maybe
we have a controversy right before us.
Yeah, we do.
today.
That's true.
Come on.
So let's talk about this. If you're joining us for today's Table Talks, we try to take a question, a topic, a controversial issue, and address it. So today our question is, should Christians drink alcohol? And so to start, we're not going back to our childhood, which is what we often do with our question. We're going to actually start by just me asking the two of you, have you had many people, in particular college students, who have approached you about this subject?
I have had some students approach me about it, and just most of the time, general questions of I'm trying to maybe decide what to do, or my friend is doing this, I'm trying to figure out how to handle it, kind of questions.
That makes sense.
I probably have a little bit different story. So in my college that I went to a Bible college. We had to sign a covenant that doesn't matter what age you are, you can't drink while you're in college. So it wasn't as big of a deal then, because even the people that would drink weren't, and the people that were drinking, it was a bigger deal than just drinking alcohol, because they were actually broken a covenant. Yeah, you're breaking a school rule. But now I would say I haven't had many college students I've talked to approach me about the topic, but they've made a comment, and I can tell they're kind of seeing what I'll say about it. They're just kind of fishing to see where my opinion is. And so I think that's most of the conversation I've had with college students and other people that know I work in a church. They'll make a comment, and it could just be passed off as a side comment, but sometimes they're looking to see what I'll say in response.
For those who might be watching and you don't know much about our church, maybe you're not affiliated with Crosspoint at all, both Tyce and Clark share duties as our co-college ministers. And so that's why I feel like it might be something they're exposed to and ask about more frequently than just the average person. I get questions occasionally, but I think most people make an assumption when it comes to me being a pastor. they know what I'm going to say, so they don't really ask my opinion very much. And I don't mind talking about it. I think it's a really interesting subject for us to dive into. So if we think about the prevailing view currently in the Christian circles, I'm not even talking about it in secular society, what do you think is the prevailing view among Christians about drinking alcohol?
I mean, if you talk to, depends on the Christian you talk to, probably. But I would say in the circles that we're probably in the most, it's probably, oh, that's a sin. Like, you're going to go to hell for drinking. Publicly.
Well,
maybe, that might not be their private opinion, but I do think publicly, in the circles that at least I've known.
I'm actually going to disagree.
Really?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to pull the old disagreement card
Come on.
here. I would say 25 years ago, which I've been in Starkville, if you're watching this, 25 years. I came in January of 2000, so I've been here 25 years. 25 years ago, I could have easily identified people in the church that I was serving at the time who would have said drinking is a sin, and you're going to go to hell if you do drink. Yeah. It was so much a prevailing attitude that it was in the church's constitution and bylaws.
Yep.
Wow.
That if you drank, you could not be considered to be a nominee to be a deacon.
Well,
or a Sunday school teacher.
I thought you were about to say a Christian, but that's
no.
Goodness gracious.
They wouldn't call that, but they would take you out of leadership positions or even leadership consideration for that. Now, 25 years later, I would say the vast majority of people I know that are Christians drink, and they're very open about it. They're not drunkards. They're not going to, the wine store every afternoon on the way home and getting a bottle that they're going to drink before they go to bed. They're just casual drinkers in social settings, and they're not really too bashful about it. And so I think the prevailing attitude, at least in Starkville, in my 25 years, has changed pretty dramatically. But that's just me making a personal assessment.
You've observed it longer than I have.
What would you say, Clark?
Well, I've not even been alive for 25 years. But
oh, Clark, that makes me feel really old. Thank you for that wonderful insult behind the back door.
But that being said, I think my first gut reaction was that, most people do not drink, because I was thinking of most of the people that are closest to me right now. But as soon as I started really thinking about it, I started counting kind of in my head, and I said, well, how many people do I know that drink? And I think it's a good many more than don't. So I would agree. I think among Christian circles, most of the people would drink alcohol and not be bashful about it. Like, they're not trying to necessarily hide it.
And I'll tell you one reason I think this prevailing attitude might have changed in my 25 years is there are more celebrity, and I hate to use that word because that's not really what I have in mind, but it is in some regards, celebrity ministers and pastors who openly talk about themselves drinking alcohol, and it's not an issue for them. And so because they are looked upon as celebrities in the Christian world, the younger generations are taking their cues from these individuals, and so it is much more widely accepted, I believe, in Christian circles because the leadership itself has embraced it. And I could name names, but I'm not going to do that for today's podcast. We can talk about that off air.
Yeah.
But I do think that has played a part in this growing, it's okay. And we'll see in Scripture, we've got some evidences that God is not against alcohol, but He's against drunkenness and the damaging effects that it can bring to a person's life. But we'll get to that in just a minute. So that's just an extra piece of my observation.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm always curious, why do you think people drink? Is it because they like the taste? It helps them to fit into social settings, or they need it to relax and take a little bit of the edge off. What do you think motivates? I'm just always curious about this. I've always wanted to just walk up to people who do drink and say, tell me why you drink. And
I'd like you can't do that without coming across like a jerk, though.
Yeah, I would not try to do that just to be aggravating them. I'm legitimately curious. What makes people drink?
Yeah. I would say kind of what Tyce just said truly is I've actually had these conversations with people before, and there's kind of this instant
reaction?
Like defense that's been put up. And a lot of times the answer I get is because I can. It's like
because
the Bible,
I can.
Yeah, it's like the Bible doesn't condemn it. it condemns drunkenness. They just start coming at you hard, and they go, there's nothing wrong with it. Why are you even asking if I would drink? And most of the time, I hope that I've handled it graciously or asked graciously. But I can't necessarily speak for all people. I'm going to answer one of your questions that you have later. I don't really drink, so I can't speak for all people. But my biggest temptation to drink would definitely be to fit into social settings, like to drink sociably. And okay, if I'm over with somebody else, I might, have one drink with them just because everybody else is doing it. But
yeah. From what I don't drink, but from what I've heard from people that do, which just makes me feel like I just have no right to talk about this. But from what I have heard,
you mentioned this before we started recording, that you kind of had a reservation about addressing an issue that you don't participate in.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I just can't find anyone that when they start, you just like the taste, because I feel like it's an acquired taste. Everyone who's like, I've heard when they drink their first beer, they're like, that's disgusting. So I think it kind of morphs over time of why. And from some, it might be to fit into social settings, and then they grow to like the taste. But what I've heard the most is to relax, and not like a drunkenness, like I'm in pain and I just need to do this, but like people are, man, nothing's better than cutting the grass and coming in and drinking a beer. Or like, I went to this, I worked hard today, played basketball, played pickup with my friends, and now we're all going out for beers after, and just to relax. So.
Yeah, that's been my overwhelming sense in watching people, is that maybe the fitting into social settings and then just to relax after a stressful day or a very intensive day seems to be more of it than taste. Other than I have heard people, and I've had these conversations, people who drink wine with meals say that the wine brings out flavor.
I have heard that before as well.
That you wouldn't normally get otherwise. And the only thing I can compare that to, I don't drink either, so that's a question we had on there, so we've all answered that now. I would say the same. I have that sensation when it comes to tacos and pizza. I want Dr. Pepper.
Really?
Yeah, because I just think tacos and pizza taste better with Dr. Pepper.
Okay.
So if there's a similarity for me that falls in that vein that makes me understand where they're coming from, it would be that. So that's just a side note on that.
There you go.
All right, let's talk about scriptures, though.
Come on.
Let's get to the Bible and what the Bible has to say. Would either one of you like to start with one? Because I'm going to start with Psalm 104.
Yeah, you go ahead and start.
I'm going to start. I've got a list, and y'all can use my list or you can have your own. We always do it this way. But I'm going to go to Psalm 104 because God's intent when he created wine was that it might be to cheer the heart. So Psalm 104 verses 14 and 15 say, he causes grass to grow for the livestock and provides crops for man to cultivate, producing food from the earth, wine that makes human hearts glad, making his face shine with oil, and bread that sustains human hearts. And so it does appear that in God's original design, prior to sin, that wine was a gift from God that was to cheer the heart. And so I just wanted to make that clear from the get-go. If you think, well, they're just anti-wine or alcohol, no, really God's intent was to cheer the heart with wine. So I think we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Okay, other verses.
So I'll go on the opposite side and say there are lots of warnings against wine in Scripture, and specifically against getting drunk. But I have Proverbs 23, 20 to 21. It says, don't associate with those who drink too much wine, or, and this is what most people would not want to hear, including myself, or with those who gorge themselves on meat.
Whoa, stop. Don't read the rest of that verse.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm full right now just from lunch today. Too full. So don't associate with those who drink too much wine, or with those who gorge themselves on meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will become poor, and grogginess will clothe them in rags.
You know what I like about that verse?
What do you like?
It does not mention dessert or chocolate chip cookies. It's just meat, which I do love meat, but it did not mention chocolate chip cookies.
Well, I'll tell you what's convicting about that verse right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Is I did have a pretty big lunch today, and grogginess will clothe them in rags. I mean, I walked in here today, and Sarav asked me if I was about to go to sleep before we started the podcast. So I guess grogginess has clothed me, and the proverb has come true.
That's good. I like that.
So I have 1 Timothy 5:23, which is Paul talking to Timothy. And this verse in my version is in parentheses. I don't know if it is in yours if y'all are looking for it. But it says, no longer drink only water, but use a little wine for for the sake of your stomach and your frequent ailments. And I think this goes along with what we had talked about of why people drink and for relaxing. That's what Paul's telling Timothy here. Like, Timothy is drinking the water, and the water is just not great. Like, it's probably full of bacteria. It's not good. And so just to be able to relax his stomach, Paul's like, hey, drink a little wine. Like, it'll be good for you.
Well, I'm going to chase a quick rabbit. I won't mention the guy's name, but my dad was a pastor for 50 years. Still preaches occasionally when he's asked, but he had a deacon in a church when I was a child. Guy was a great guy. He was a carpenter in our community, just a fantastic guy, very nice. And he had a kidney stone issue.
Yeah.
It was a continual problem that he faced, and his doctor advised him to drink a beer every night to flush out those kidney issues. And so he actually came to my dad and said, do I need to resign as a deacon because I know that our church has some pretty strong ideas about leadership and alcohol. But he said, this is what my doctors recommended. My dad was like, if that's what your doctor recommended, that's what you need to do. But it was kind of very similar to what Paul said to Timothy.
Yeah.
You've got a health issue and you need to drink some alcohol to help flush this out or to keep you healthy. So I just remember that as a kid because I was thinking to myself, what? My dad's advising a guy to drink alcohol?
Yeah.
But it was not my dad. It was the doctor. So
Right.
Anyway, other verses.
I've got Ephesians 5:18, which says, don't get drunk with wine, which leads to reckless living, but be filled by the Spirit. So again, kind of just this warning against getting drunk specifically with wine.
Well, the same principle applies in Proverbs 31. And I'm going to go back to this. Tyce and I actually had a discussion about this verse because I think this summer y'all got to Proverbs 31 in your Thursday morning Bible studies.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he dropped by that morning or the day before that y'all were going to talk about Proverbs 31. But it says in verses 4 and 5, it is not for kings, Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine or for rulers to desire beer. Otherwise he will drink, forget what is decreed, and pervert justice for all the oppressed. And so, again, as a warning, like you're talking about, Clark, this verse is an admonition to the king of Israel. Don't use wine too much or alcohol too much, because if you drink and become drunk, you're not going to have sound judgment and remember the law, which is going to be the guiding force that you need to use to direct the people. So that was a warning there as well. So there's just a lot of warnings that we find about this. Any others you want to use for us?
There's one I really want to specifically focus on, but it actually comes up later on in our discussion. So.
Okay, we'll get back to that then. All right, so I think we've answered the next question I had in the list. None of us drink, which is just a choice that we've made. Do you have any advice for people maybe in our position that have chosen not to drink in settings where the majority of people are drinking? Because I want us to say to those who are drinking, God's not condemning alcohol consumption in any form. He's just talking about drink in moderation. Never let it overcome you. Never let it distort your ability to think clearly.
Yep.
So God's created it for your enjoyment. Some of us have chosen not to, and I think if you're one of those who's chosen not to, like me or you or Clark, then sometimes we can often feel a little bit awkward in those situations where most of the people are drinking. So what advice could we offer those people?
I would say just to ask yourself why you're not drinking. If you've kind of been raised in an environment where everybody says don't drink, or maybe the opposite, just to kind of have your why. So if it does come up among believers, like let's say the three of us are out eating and you two are drinking, and you say, Clark, why don't you have a drink with us? And I would say, well, I just have a personal conviction that I know maybe, and this is true for me, maybe alcohol runs in my family and I don't want to, give the devil an opportunity, give him a foothold. So just to kind of have a why behind why you're doing what you're doing. Because I think a lot of times, and this applies to more than just drinking, when we don't have a why behind what we're doing, if someone challenges us on it, we can just fall apart and we can crumble.
That's really good. I like that idea.
Yeah. I would say stand firm on your conviction, but don't be one of those people that make your conviction known to everyone else. Like, you don't have to be verbal about it unless asked. But if you're just if you're choosing not to drink, don't let it, unless you're going to struggle with it, unless it's going to cause a problem for you or a stumbling block for you to judge others. don't be someone that just doesn't hang out with your friends who drink because they drink. Like, it's okay to be in those situations and have your conviction, but not have to talk about your conviction or put condemnation on other people.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that I wanted to make is you can hold your convictions without being condemning toward others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I am. I go to tons of weddings. I do tons of weddings, and I go to tons of weddings, and almost all wedding receptions at this point have some form of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I know some pastors who immediately leave when the wedding ends because they don't think they need to be there in any form or fashion while alcohol is served. I'm the opposite. I will stay and enjoy the reception and celebrate the couple, enjoy the food, the cake. I'm going to try to always get the cake. But if everybody in the circle that I'm talking to is drinking and I'm not, it really doesn't bother me, but I hope it doesn't bother them either, because I want them to know that's okay. It's just, I choose not to, but I'm not here to condemn you because you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people know where Kelly and I stand on that, and they are very comfortable coming up and talking to us with a drink in hand, and it doesn't offend us and it doesn't offend them.
Right.
And I think that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, any other advice on that? I would say if you do feel uncomfortable, though, and it's not something you feel like you can handle, it's okay to leave. But as you said, Tyce, you just don't want to leave with condemnation spewing from your mouth every step of the way, like,
Right.
I'm getting out of here because they're just a bunch of drunkards. There's no need for that. Just quietly get your stuff and walk out and get in your car and go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, what about this other factor we want to talk about? We get into the strong, weak believer principles that Paul mentions in both Romans 14 and 15, and then he also talks about in 1 Corinthians 8, 9, and 10. Is there any advice we can pull scripturally for those who are strong believers versus those who are weak believers as it relates to alcohol?
So that's where I really wanted to focus in on our scripture, and I'll read a little bit of 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Starting with verse 4, it says, "About eating food sacrificed to idols, then we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is one God, the Father." And then moving on, "However, not everyone has this knowledge. Some have been so used to idolatry up until now that when they eat food sacrificed to an idol, their conscience, being weak, is defiled. Food will not bring us close to God. We are not worse off if we don't eat, and we are not better if we do eat. But be careful that this right of yours in no way becomes a stumbling block to the weak." And I wanted to specifically focus on this because this is actually one of the biggest reasons that I choose not to drink, is I just don't want it to be a stumbling block to someone who is around that might not have as strong of a biblical understanding of what drinking looks like. Because, in the last 25 years, it has changed some, but there still can be a little bit of a stigma around drinking. And if somebody sees me having a drink, that might be a stumbling block for them because they're not grounded enough, or it could be a stumbling block for somebody who has drunk in the past and, wants to and desires to do that again, and they see me doing it and they struggle. Now, there have been times in the past where, and I'm not sure that I probably would not do this again, but I was at like a bachelor trip, for example, with lots of believers, some guys in ministry, and they were sharing a drink. And I was thinking in my head, okay, I know what my witness is around here. There's like 5 people in the room, and I know that they're going to hold me accountable to making sure that I would not stumble in any way. So I shared a drink with them at that time. And although I may not do that again, that may be some good practical advice for, and I skipped to the next question, but for believers to just make sure you're in a setting where there is accountability and you know that it's not going to be a stumbling block for anybody that's around.
Mm-hmm. Tyce, any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I do think, and I say this with as much humility as possible. There's just some things like when you are, whether it's a strong Christian, pastor, devotion leader, Sunday school teacher, there's some things that you do just in leadership. You have to say it's not wrong, but I can't do it. Like, you just have to set this wall because you are called to be above the standard as a leader. And so this might be one of those things occasionally where you have to do that. And I think you can apply it, like if you're taking a group of other Christians to a movie, even if like there's not a sex scene, we would obviously not say that, but like there's implied sex between a husband and wife. Well, that might not be the best thing to take a group of Christians to, even though it's between a husband and wife. It's in the biblical context of marriage, but the implied of the sex scene, you don't want to do that. Same thing with drinking. Maybe as a leader, you wouldn't want to drink around fellow Christians because the implied, hey, like they do it, it's okay, so I can drink as much as I want because I'm not the leader, and so I don't have to be held to that standard. So then I can drink more than my leader, and you just don't want to create that idea in someone's mind, a weaker believer's mind. But at the same time, I do know plenty of Christians, and I know plenty of ministries and pastors, especially when I was considering going to Wisconsin to take a job in college. I mean, they had beers and Bible every Friday night. And
it was a part of their ministry.
Yeah, and they would like go to a bar, and that's where the men's Bible study was. And so sometimes for a weaker believer that's just like, man, like the church is just so stuck up, I can't do anything fun, which that's a whole different argument. Can Christians have fun? But sometimes they just need to see their pastor that's like, yeah, I'll share a beer with you, and like, let's talk about Jesus. And it's okay. Like, well, let's do that. So,
well, and I appreciate everything y'all said. I think that's why I wanted to go to Romans 14 and in particular focus on verse 15 and a few others. For if your brother or sister is hurt by what you eat, we could substitute, or what you drink, you are no longer walking according to love. Do not destroy by what you eat. We could add drink, someone for whom Christ died. Therefore, do not let your good be slandered. For the kingdom of God is not about eating and drinking, but righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. Whoever serves Christ in this way is acceptable to God and receives human approval. So, to your point, Clark, going back to what you said a minute ago, I choose not to drink. I don't think I would probably like it. I've never tried it, so I don't know, but I don't think I would like it. But even greater, I want to do what's the most loving thing I can for my brothers and sisters who may or may not be at the same point in the journey with Jesus that I am. And so I don't want to be a stumbling block. I want to do whatever I do out of a spirit of love and what would honor Christ the most. So for me, that's choosing not to drink, and that goes along with your illustration of what you said about movies. It has a broader application than just drinking. It has far-reaching implications, this stronger, weaker brother, and doing things out of the motive of love. So I think that's probably my main motive is I just don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see the name of Christ get disparaged in any way. I wouldn't want to be the cause of somebody's alcoholism because they see me drink, they decide they want to drink, they can't handle it, can't self-discipline, all of a sudden they have an alcohol problem. I just want to do what I can out of love for the gospel. So that's why I choose not to drink. And that's why I thought this was important for us to talk about. Final, any advice you want to give to a follower of Jesus about drinking alcohol?
I really like your point too. Avoid making drinking alcohol become a first-tier theological issue. I think sometimes the people that can do that are us right here, like the ministers who because this is like our job to think about these things. And so sometimes we over-talk about it, and that's our downfall. But I think just with any conversation, sometimes Christians' biggest downfall is to talk about something for 45 minutes that everyone agrees with, and then you just get so passionate about it that it becomes a first-tier theological issue.
It's not a first-tier
theological issue. It is not
issue.
even a third-tier theological issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's way down the list.
Bible, like as far as just drinking goes, the Bible says there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
so
that's
the
right.
drunkenness does become an issue, but I mean, as far as drinking alcohol, it should not be an issue.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I would say you can drink, but just make sure you give consideration to the inherent risk that are involved. I think that's really important to keep in mind. And then I'd written down, never let alcohol consumption become a god in your life. There's a verse that we had earlier. I didn't read it. I don't think either one of you read it. It goes back to Isaiah, I believe, chapter 5. There's a verse about some start the day and end the day by pursuing wine. That's the gist of the verse. And that shows a person who has made alcohol or wine their god. And we never want to see that happen. The last thing I was going to encourage our audience today to consider, and this is really for those who are not married, but I would seriously encourage you, if you're in a dating relationship, to have some heart-to-heart conversations about your views on alcohol, because I was asked to I didn't do the wedding because it didn't happen, nor was I the person who was supposed to do it. I was just brought in as a third party. There was a young couple who were college students here at Mississippi State probably 15 or 20 years ago. They were dating, got engaged, and then during the engagement period, it became obvious he had some very strong opinions about drinking alcohol and actually making his own home brew, which his family had done for years. And she came from a family where alcohol was taboo. They were just not going to drink. And so as they talked through their future marriage and talked through the issue of children, it was obvious they had different opinions. And so I actually sat down and visited with him in my backyard one Saturday morning, and I came to a point where I asked him, are you willing to give up your belief about alcohol to love her and spend the rest of your life with her? And he said no. And when he did, I just turned to her and I said, I'm so sorry, but my advice is you need to break this engagement, because if he can't give up alcohol for you and it's such an issue, it's not going to work. And
Wow.
they eventually broke off the engagement, went their separate ways, and they're both very happily married now and doing great in their own respects. So it's just something you need to talk through before you get married.
Yep.
So anyway, other thoughts, final thoughts?
I'll just follow up and say, know your why behind what you're doing. If you're gonna
Yeah.
if you're gonna drink, or if you're not gonna drink, you should know your why behind it.
Anything else, Tyce?
No, that's good.
All right.
We-
Well, we're glad you've joined us for today's Table Talks. Again, it's a little bit of a controversial issue for some people, but we hope that our content has given you some things to think about, and you can share this with friends and neighbors, have a discussion among them as well. And most of all, we hope whatever you do, you'll do all for the glory of God. And then we hope you'll come back and join us for our next edition of the Table Talks. Have a great day.